Hello there, I'm VuduMagic here to show you a game that was played in the Siegfried and Roy Cup in 1997 between Super Grandmaster Garry Kasparov with the black pieces and MRJobe with the white pieces. Now MRJobe started off with his e-pawn. He moved it to e4. Garry Kasparov had done some preparation for this tournament and thought his best defense was e5, blocking it. Marshall immediately goes for the challenge, and he's met by another challenge. Very, very interesting game so far. Now, if Marshall were to move up the pawn, what would happen is he could take this right here, but he would be defended by the bishop. But if he moves up here, he takes the pawn. Marshall would have to retake, and then he gets a queen trade, and the king would have to move, and that's not good because the queen wouldn't be able to easily castle. So he decides to not go for this approach. Instead, he takes the pawn. Now, a check is ensued. Now, he made a slight error here, but he has a correction in mind for this. He basically is forced to move the pawn up to block. A very, very good move by Garry Kasparov, forcing a very good move by, there it is. Okay, now if you notice, he's put him in check, and then he's got an attack on the rook. So let's see if he takes advantage of it. He didn't. Knight comes up now to protect the pawn. Bishop comes up to protect the knight and have a discovered attack on the queen. And the queen should have taken that, I think. Maybe there was something else he had in mind that he was worried about, but I think that would have been the best approach. Now, Marshall comes up over with the... Actually, no, that's not what happened in the game. What happened in the game, because if he were to do that, he thought about coming there. But as you see, if he would have done that, he would have taken this and put the king in check. The king would move up, and then he would lose yet another piece. So what he goes for in this particular game was the pawn move. No. See, I'm backing it up. I'm wondering if you know what the best move is. Well, he went for the best move, which is moving the knight up, attacking the pawn. Pawn was now defended. Now, Marshall goes for a defense of his pawn, backing the pawn up with both the knight and the pawn, and has attack on the queen. The queen says, "Oh no, I don't want any part of that." Well, he didn't really say that, but it looks like it. So now Marshall takes the opportunity to castle. Now he's got a semi-open file here. Okay, now Marshall thought about this for quite a while and thought that his best option was to think about it even longer. Now, of course, you know, Garry Kasparov, let's go over Garry Kasparov a little bit. Garry Kasparov is a chess grandmaster who held the title for several years, and he got the title in 1980. He was the world champion, undisputed, between 1985 and 1993, and 1993 to 2000. He was basically the highest rated chess player of all time at the time, at the peak rating of FIDE level of 2851, and his peak rank, he was there at January 1984. So this was quite a game, as you'll see. Now, Garry Kasparov was quite worried about this game because he'd heard about all of the amazing things that MRJobe was doing and just tearing apart his opponents. MRJobe goes for the bishop move. Now, he could take this, but he would open up the bishop coming forward. So what he does is think a little bit longer. He shores up the bishop. Queen is sensing something is going a little haywire in Denmark, or even in other places around the globe. Marshall shores up the pawn here and prepares for a knight move. Now, he knows if the knight moves right now, it's in big trouble. He'll lose this pawn, and then he'll lose the protection of this piece right here. So he doesn't do that. He thinks a little longer. He thinks. And he thinks yet again, and Marshall moves up the queen to protect the pawn. Ooh, so you see what he saw. He saw what he saw, and he seed-sawed, and that's what he saw. So the position was pretty interesting right here. Marshall had several opportunities, several options actually, that is, to do various things in the game. One of which was to do other various things. But these various things were not the various things that he did. Instead, he thought to himself, hey self, I think I want to get this bishop into the game. And so what he did was he blocked. He forced the knight. He pinned the knight against the queen. But now he wins a knight easily. And now we have a little bit of an exchange here going on. Now Marshall wanted that exchange. Now Marshall has a little bit of a situation here. He doesn't want necessarily this guy to move here and take him, because then he'll have a pawn that he has to deal with coming forward. But then there's all sorts of things. There's different types of things he could do. He can move this piece and that piece and the other piece and every piece that you could piece together. He decides to get the rook off of the white location because he doesn't want to have to deal with the bishop attacking him. And now look what he does. Okay, now he's attacking the knight. He comes up to defend the knight. Pushes a pawn. Obviously he thought about pushing the pawn, but he decided better against it. Okay, so now he says, I need these things defended, but I really I feel like maybe I need to do something about this knight coming down. He doesn't want that knight to start jumping around and doing stuff, so what he does is he moves the pawn up to block any kind of knight move there. Now this move really didn't do anything. Kasporov, I think Kasporov didn't know what he was doing at this point. His fear of MRJobe had gotten to the point of terror. So this is what occurred. He attacks the bishop. Now the bishop really doesn't have many places to go, so he decides to curtail his wall-pulling activities, sally forth, infiltrate this place of purveyance to negotiate the vending of some cheesy comestibles. But then again, maybe that wasn't the right thing he should have done. Now, Marshall thought about at this point, he said after the game, he thought about moving this piece up, but then he would have given up his pawn. So he decided to move his king into the action to protect this piece. Now, the thing here is that if Marshall would have moved this pawn up, then the rook would come into the game. Now, that would be okay, but then he doesn't want the king to castle on this side, which is probably what's going to happen. So let's see what happens next. Actually, to tell you the truth, this is actually a live tournament. I just didn't tell you. It wasn't really in 1993. It was right now. Marshall goes up to attack on the bishop. He's tired of these bishops, so he gets it off the board. He's extremely tired of the bishop. Now, Marshall was very lucky of something, but he doesn't know what. So now he says, "Hey, look at me! I'm attacking your king here. Aren't I the special beast?" But Marshall says, "No, you're not a special beast." And this is what he was able to do now. He now leaves the pawn, blocking this player's attempt to, Gary Kasparov's attempt to come down and do something. And really, Gary Kasparov at this point doesn't really know what to do. He's kind of beside himself with, situations that you have to be beside yourself to see. And, you know, being beside yourself, you see yourself quite often. So now Marshall goes for a preparation move. He doesn't have to worry about the white bishop anymore. So he moves his rook over, thinking, hey, you know, I don't know why he said that, but, you know, because it's kind of a weird thing to say, hey, but this guy really can't do anything. You know, people thought about after the game, why did Gary Kasparov make this move? Because Gary Kasparov, I mean, he knows what he's doing most of the time. But in this particular situation, he had no clue. He was so overrun by fear that all he could see was taking this piece right here, but Marshall easily defended it. Now, if he were to move this piece down, for example, Marshall could just come over here and do a double defend on that piece. But that was a very good move by Gary Kasparov because it was blocking a knight move by Marshall. MRJobe, excuse me. Now Marshall decides to double defend the pawn, and he has another move in mind coming up. He attacks the knight, and he takes the knight out. Get it? Takes the knight out. Now, what's going to happen here is that he's going to take that pawn most likely, so this pawn needs to be defended. Ooh, he didn't do it, see? He didn't do it. He probably should have, though. Now, there are some various things that could be done in this game. You know, this, that, and the other. Marshall decides to move his rook up, preparing to move the pawn up to attack. Because now when he moves his pawn up, there he goes. Now we have a situation here that Marshall was hoping for. You saw that he moved his rook over to B, and he can now take, and now they're defending on each other. But you gotta watch out, you know, the knight's still right here, and you know, what's he gonna do? You know, when you say goodbye, what's he gonna do when you're gone? So now another thing that you have to watch out for is you have to watch out for the king infiltrating in this place of advance. But he does that, then he's going to be blocking his pawn. And the rook still kind of needs to stay right there, so Marshall moves up his king to protect, in case he needs to move stuff away. Marshall moves his rook up. And look what he did. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting altogether. Marshall prepares to do a little double hop here. This is a great game. Notice that now he makes it where these guys can't move. Boy, Gary Kasparov thinks he has the game under control. Okay, so now, what is the move? What is the move he should make? Can you guess? I see it. Now, he could move this pawn up to attack the king, and then slide this over, and that's exactly what he does. He can't take it, but he did. Look at that. He was so fearful of what was going to happen to him that he decided to take it anyway, and Marshall blocks that file again, attacking the rook and forcing the rook to move. Now he takes the open file. Now he's protected by the knight. What now? What now? Now, there are some really good things I want you to pay attention to right now. The really cool things that could happen. He actually moves, or thought about moving his knight up. Oh, interesting. But he would have left this one unprotected. So, and you can't have unprotected, so he decides to flip over here so he can take the pawn. Now we have a situation. Now this right here is really good because he's guarding this particular spot. So Marshall has to watch out here. he doesn't want the rook getting down into this area because he'll just start picking up pawns. So he slides this over, attacking the rook, and he takes the attack, and now he's in big trouble. He was kind of forced to, if you think about it. I don't like to think about things like that, but thinking about things sometimes helps you think. And he's just kind of letting him do what he wants to do because he's got a lot of things to think about. Look at this. He blocks that pawn. Now, if he were to go over here to check him, then he would slide over here and be attacking two pieces at the same time, and that would not be good. So now he takes the knight, and it is protected by the rook. And now he takes this down. Now the king is forced to move to that rank. And now he decides, well, this is the last thing I can do, last ditch effort here. So Marshall just decides to move his king. Take that last pawn out so it doesn't become an issue. And now, as you see, it's a walk in the park for Marshall, destroying, absolutely, completely destroying Garry Kasparov. Now, what's the best way of doing this? What's the best way? Now, notice this is a terrible move. This would be a stalemate. He doesn't want to do that. This would be a stalemate too. See what he's doing here? Now he's protected by the rook, by the knight that is, so he can't move, and all he has to do is move this in for the kill. Which move? Which piece? Which piece? Game over. Game over. Garry Kasparov left this match completely disturbed, distraught. They had to put him under suicide watch, actually. Not really. He actually walked over and congratulated Marshall and said, you know, hey, you're the greatest player that's ever played, and I'll never want to play you again. You know, Garry Kasporov has a little bit of an attitude. So anyway, so that was it. I hope you enjoyed this. In your future games, don't play MRJobe, because he will tear you apart. He will rip you limb from limb. Why is it always limb from limb? Why isn't it like, you know, bark from tree or something? But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this game, and I hope to be seeing you very, very soon. Until then, bye-bye.